Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to use balayage techniques to get a full highlighted look for summer. This is the before that we're working with. She was just all over pretty dark on the inside. It grew out pretty good, it's just she wants to be brighter for summer. This is the after. It turned out beautiful. She has a little bit of a shadow root and she wanted to be more of a honey blonde color. This is the sectioning we're going to be working with. I am a licensed cosmetologist. I've been doing this for about 8 years. Redken Flash Lift with the pH bonder is definitely my favorite lightener. So if you want those links, they'll be in the description below for any of the products that I'm using today. I am a licensed professional. If you choose to do this at home, just use caution. So your first section is going to be by the nape area. This is where she's going to pull her hair up so that she can see highlights. You're going to weave that section and then you're going to get your tease board and you're actually going to push the hair up just like that. You don't want to do it too much, just enough to where those little baby hairs go straight up. Then you're going to use your board, you're going to need tension, and you're going to start painting on your lightener. These hairs are very fragile, so you do not need a lot of product, and I'm only using 10 volume. You want to make sure that that hair stays healthy. You're going to just lock your foil in and then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So we're weaving and then we're going to tease it slightly. We're going to put our foil on the board and we're going to use those teeth there to hold the tease up so that we're not painting the lightener into that tease section. If you see how I'm holding my brush, I'm just lightly, very lightly brushing up that lightener to the root area. Once you're done, make sure that you push out that blonde section. For this section, you're going to do the exact same thing. We're actually going to use the section underneath and do that first so that when she pulls her hair up, you're going to be able to see the highlights right there if she's wearing a ponytail. So you're going to push that up, and right here it's pretty dark, so I think I'm going to use a pretty good amount of lightener right here. Again, you're just going to slightly feather that right up to the tease right there. For this section, you're going to go straight across and you're going to push all of that hair up. We're going to use hairspray to hold the tease section up for us so it locks it in right there. And we're going to start hair painting. So balayage is basically a French word for sweeping motion. So you want to make sure everything you're doing is very light-handed. For whatever reason, I'm putting my pinky up, but however you need to get it done, you just do it. So you're going to paint down. You're always going to paint down until you are ready to feather that lightener up, and you do not want a lot of the product on there either. So right now I'm just painting the surface. I'm not going to do the underside of this one because that's going to create dimension in her hair, and we want to keep that low light there. So the next section we're going to do is we're going to actually split those in half. We're going to do this all the way up the head. So if you saw right there, the amount of tease that I push up is basically going to be how dark it is at the top. So I'm going to be covering a lot of ground on the back of her head, and we don't really need to go too far with it because the very top of her head is going to be really blonde. We're feathering up the lightener to it, and we're actually going to do a diagonal section. So if you see how I'm painting it, it's on a diagonal, and it's going to create a V in the middle when I do the other side. So we want to keep the very middle section darker. So right here, I'm going to go on the underside. I'm going to do the exact same thing, and I'm feathering it. When you're putting your foils on, you want to make sure that you're very light-handed with it as well, just because this is a very blended technique and you don't want to push down too hard. Okay, so we did both sides. Now you go straight across in the middle section. Remember, we're creating little triangles across the entire back of the head. So I start with my product and I worked it down, and now I'm working it up. When you get to these middle sections, you're actually going to create what I call the V. So you're going to put lightener on both sides of that section. If you see me wiping any of those hairs, that's okay. If you get lightener where it's not supposed to be. I do feather it up and get it into some of the tease sections, but that's okay as long as you don't do it too heavy-handed. So you're going to do that all the way up the head until you get to the very top crown section. So now, because I want it to be more of a highlighted look, we're going to do what I call foilage, or, you know, the hair industry likes to make new terms for everything. So I'm gonna spray that tease section so it stays up. It doesn't get into where I'm gonna paint my lightener. I'm gonna take my balayage board and I'm gonna lock my foil on there. I like to bend both sides and wrap it around so it doesn't fall off. We're gonna push that tease up, and I'm actually gonna be going a little bit higher with this just because her hair is pretty grown out right here in a straight line, so we wanna make sure we actually see a difference. This is basically where her hair is grown out to, the line of demarcation. I'm pushing that lightener up right there because I don't wanna overlap on the blonde parts too much. And if you make mistakes, it's totally fine. Just use your finger or use a towel to brush it away. So as you can see, I'm painting the dark areas where it's grown out and trying to avoid the hair that's already blonde. Right here, I'm basically feathering up just like we were before. It's just I'm going a little bit higher with the tease. I got a little bit of lightener in there that I didn't want, so I'm just gonna rub it away with my fingers. Now we're gonna push that blonde hair out of the foil, and this section is gonna be done as soon as I finish that dark part down there. Sometimes I do like to go back and reapply where the darkest area is. Just make sure you're not overlapping. So we're gonna keep working our way up the crown, doing every single section. It's pretty see-through once you get done with it. It's more of a thicker weave. It's not like a baby light. You want these weaves to be ribbons and stand out when you're looking at the hair. So I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm gonna go cover all of the dark areas. Sometimes if you look at my brush, I go from vertical to horizontal to make sure all of the hair is saturated evenly. Sometimes the underneath of the section is not saturated properly, and then you're gonna get what I call cheetah prints. So you need to make sure your saturation is on point. Always make sure you're pushing that blonde hair out of the foil. We do not overlap. Once I get to this middle section, just like we've been doing, we're still going to be using our triangle sectioning. I'm weaving that area right there. The underneath is going to be my low light. So these highlights that I'm doing are going to pop next to that darker hair. She has about a level 6, 6.5 hair, so it's pretty perfect for the look that she's going for. It's not too light and it's not too dark. So it's going to look really good and blended once we're all done. So you're gonna feather that lightener up, and we're just gonna push that lightener in back and forth, just to make sure the underneath is saturated. You're gonna put your foil on top, and then you're gonna go up the rest of the head on the exact same technique. Sometimes I do like to lock the tease in just like I did right there with the comb if it's too much hair, just to keep it out of the way. You guys don't have to worry too much about that tease section because we're gonna do a root tap at the very end or a root melt. And we're gonna use Redken Shades EQ, which is very forgiving. And I'm gonna show you how to erase any of those foil lines or, any mistakes that you might have had while you were doing it, whether you're doing it on yourself or doing it on a client. Always make sure you're taking out those bits if they go too far down that are darker, that are mixed in with the blonde, so that you can cover everything evenly. So as I'm going up the crown of her head, we're just going to keep doing the exact same sectioning, and we're going to speed it up. As you get to the front of the head, you're gonna see this little spot right here. You can tell where I did my foils last time, so you can see how grown out it is right there. You're gonna go on a diagonal section. It should be very thin, and you're gonna do a very thin weave right here. These actually should be baby lights, so very, very thin. I put my foil right over my comb and I lock it in right against her face. I use my 2 fingers right there to help me get tension on it. You always want to maintain tension when you're doing this, or the foil is going to slip right out and you're going to get those ugly foil lines. The other thing you want to make sure too is do not blast this hair with a very strong volume of developer. Right here, I think I used 15. That's about where I was throughout her head. I get up to 20 once I get to the top of her head, but I never go past 20 volume. You do not need to go past 20 volume, especially on this level of lightness of hair. So I'm going to do basically 3 foils right here until her hairline connects with the front. I'm going to put the foil over my comb. We're going to lock it in, and then we're only going to be painting on the areas that are grown out or darker. The other thing that you want to do too, guys, is I actually do a slice instead of a weave after this one, just to cover more ground and kind of make her money piece pop right here. This is what's going to make that front piece look so good and so blonde in the front. Now you can see we're finally connected to the front, so this is where I'm going to start that slice. We want a little bit bolder of a section right here. That's where it's going to connect when she pulls her hair up. You're going to take a very, very fine section here. You should easily be able to read a page through a book. These techniques are so versatile. If you wanted to go for more of a dimensional look, then you would just continue hand painting the rest of your head. You do not have to do these highlights in the very front for your money piece. You could easily just take certain sections, tease that, and just hand paint it all the way up. The other thing is I am using Redken flash lifts for most of these sections. If you are doing hand painted balayage, normally you would use clay lightener. I just happen to be out of it today. But if you do want to use something that's a lot easier to paint with, opt for a clay lightener instead. So she actually has a widow's peak, so that's why we opted for a half or middle part sectioning. She has really fine baby hairs in the front, so we're going to take a very fine section, we're going to weave that, and that's where we're going to start. I actually ripped my foils in half right here because you don't need a super long foil, so always work with the size that you're actually working on the section. Okay, so I just finished the other side of her head, and we're actually gonna take a straight across section right here connecting those 2 front pieces. That's how you connect that money piece. So you're gonna tease it, you're gonna put your foil in, you're just gonna push the tease up, and you're not gonna go to the scalp on this one. You want it to be a little bit lower so it gives that balayage effect. And I have to wipe away some lightener, but that's okay. Your next sections, basically you're gonna try to go horizontally up the head. I'm still on a slight diagonal back, and that's just the way I like to do her hair, just because she actually has a little bit of hair loss in this section right here. So I wanna make sure everything is nice and diffused. I'm gonna speed this up here in a minute for you guys so you can see how I do the whole front of her hair, but it's gonna be the exact same way we did the crown section in the back. This is basically what it looks like with all the foils in. She's turning around. She looks like she could probably call an alien right now. We're going to put a towel over her head. That's going to trap in the heat from those foils. Her hair is completely done processing. It's about at a level 9. We're going to start mixing up our toner. I'll give you the formula. It will be in the description below in case you want that. This is going to be her root shadow formula. I'll also put that in the description below, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do her root shadow. So after I washed her, we're going to start that root shadow at the very top. I'm not painting it further down than about an inch. We're going to section out that very front money piece so that I don't get anything on that money piece. That's the part that we want to be the brightest, so you don't really want to do that part first. So if you're doing a root shadow, you want to make sure that you use a comb or a wet brush to just marry those colors in just a little bit. You don't want to pull it down to the ends. I'm using a special wow comb that has a roller in the very middle of it that actually rolls the color on the hair without pulling it to the ends, because you don't want to get spotty color on there. This very front section now is what we're going to do last. I'm literally just tapping it right on there. We're not going to pull it, we're not going to push it down or anything. I'm going to slightly comb it through just to give it a slight shadow. Now we're going to put our toner on, and I'm basically going to smudge that right into the root. I don't want to pull the root down, but I do want to marry those colors together. And as you can see, her hair actually lifted a little bit lighter than her ends, which is okay. We're going to be toning down the top to meet the ends. Now we're blow drying and we're all washed out. My client had to actually go get her daughter, so we did this pretty quickly, but I'm just going to show you how I quickly curled her hair. This is the after. It turned out really beautiful. She really wanted to be brighter for summer, and as you can see at the very root, it's very soft, very blended, so it's going to grow out really well. And just as a reminder, this is the point that we started. It was very dark in the back. She was pretty grown out, and this is the after. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.